All right, thank you. So once again, welcome to the Astronomy at Home Story Time from the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. And today we are going to be reading this book, Moon Rope. I've got a copy of it here and I'll show it to you later as well. And before we get started, I just wanted to let you know a little bit about this book. This is an adaptation of a story from Peru. It's a Peruvian tale, and it's called The Fox and the Mole. The illustrations, so the pictures in the book, are inspired by ancient Peruvian textiles, jewelry, ceramic vessels, sculpture, and architectural detail. There are like food and animals on these objects, and there's like squash, corns, potatoes, foxes, snakes, feline figures, birds. So this is inspired by some of the artwork that the author saw in Peru. So you'll see that the pictures look a little different than the pictures you're usually used to, and we hope you find it interesting. And it's a little hard to tell in some of the pictures, but they use this nice kind of silvery ink for some of the pictures. So at the end, we'll take a closer look at one of these pictures and you can see how it's nice and silvery. All right, so I am going to now turn it over to Theresa and Pablo, who will be reading the book for you. Go ahead, Theresa.
Thank you, Anna. It's good to see all of you, as I mentioned. And I'm going to share my screen. It's the same thing. Okay, that took a minute. Thanks for your patience. So the story is called Moon Rope, and it's by Lois Ehlert.
Se llama Un lazo a la luna. Es de Lois Ehlert.
Moon Rope, a Peruvian folk tale.
Un lazo a la luna, una leyenda peruana.
Mole was taking a break from digging for worms when Fox came by. Mole, he said, if you could have anything in the world, what would it be?
El topo descansaba después de escarbar un bosque de gusanos cuando el zorro llegó. Topo, dijo el zorro, si pudieras tener lo que te gustara en el mundo, ¿qué cosa escogerías?
Worms and more worms, Mole said. What about you? I want to go to the moon. The moon? Mole gulped. How? I'll think of something, said Fox, and he ran off through the grass.
Gusanos, gusanos y más gusanos, dijo el topo. ¿Y a ti? ¿Qué te gustaría? Yo quisiera ir a la luna. ¡A la luna!, dijo el topo, sorprendido. ¿Pero cómo? Ya se me ocurrirá algo, dijo el zorro, y se marchó corriendo a través de la tierra.
Fox liked running through the grass. It tickled his fur, and that gave him an idea. Why not make a rope of grass? With a loop at one end, he could hitch it to the tip of the moon and climb up.
A Zorro le gustaba correr por la hierba. El pasto le picaba el pelaje. Entonces tuvo una idea. ¿Por qué no trenza un lazo de hierba? Haciendo un nudo en el extremo, podría enlazar a un pico de la luna y subirse.
Fox ran back. Mole, I've got it. Both of us can climb to the moon on my rope. Mole blinked. Both of us? There are big worms up there, said Fox. Huge! Mole's stomach growled. He'd go.
Y el zorro regresó donde su amigo el topo. Oye, topo, ya sé cómo ir a la luna. Los dos podríamos subirnos con mi lazo. El topo parpadeó. ¿Los dos? Allí hay muchos gusanos grandes, dijo el zorro. Unos enormes. El estómago del tope empezó a gruñir. Iría también.
Mole and Fox braided grass into a long rope and then waited for the crescent moon to appear. Then Fox twirled the rope high over his head.
El topo y el zorro trenzaron la hierba para hacer un lazo largo y esperaron hasta que apareció la luna creciente. Entonces el zorro dio vueltas al lazo por encima de su cabeza.
How can I help you?
Clunk! It fell down and hit him right in the nose. Fox growled. He was mad.
Tras, se cayó el lazo y golpeó al zorro en la nariz. El zorro gruñó. Estaba enojado.
Do you guys ever get frustrated when you try something and then it doesn't work? Oh, that is tough to handle. I bet I understand why that fox was mad. Maybe the birds would carry our rope, said Mole. That's a good strategy. But the birds didn't want to go to the moon. Just hitch this rope to the tip, said Fox. We'll do the rest.
Quizás. I have to wait a second. The words there. Quizás los pájaros nos pudieran llevar al lazo, dijo el topo, pero los pájaros no querían ir a la luna. Solo les pido que aten el lazo a la punta, les dijo el zorro. Nosotros haremos lo demás.
So that sounded like a good strategy, right? So the birds took the rope in their beaks and they flew up, up, up into the sky. Mole and Fox waited.
Entonces los pájaros tomaron el lazo con sus picos y volaron hacia arriba, muy arriba, hasta el cielo. El topo y el zorro se quedaron esperando abajo.
When they returned, the birds said, "Your rope is ready." Fox started climbing, paw over paw, eager to be the first on the moon. Mole followed, claw over claw.
Cuando regresaron los pájaros dijeron, ya está listo el lazo. El zorro empezó a subir pata por pata, pues quería ser el primer en llegar a la luna. El topo le siguió garra por garra.
Fox kept his eyes on the moon, but not Mole. He kept glancing back down to earth. Suddenly, Mole's claws slipped. He fell through the air, down, down, down.
El zorro no quitaba los ojos de la luna, pero el topo sí. Echaba mirada hacia la tierra. De pronto se le soltaron las garras. Se cayó en el espacio, hacia abajo, hacia abajo, hacia abajo.
Plump! Mole landed on a bird. They had been following the two climbers. Oof, that was lucky. Mole hung on tightly as he was carried back home. He hoped to land unnoticed.
¡Plum! El topo cayó encima de un pájaro que había seguido a los trepadores. Se agarró firmemente mientras el pájaro lo llevaba de vuelta a la tierra. Esperaba llegó desapercibido.
But all the creatures were watching. They laughed at Mole. Maybe you didn't slip, said Snake. Maybe you let go on purpose so you could come back home.
Pero todos los animales lo estaban mirando. Se burlaban del tope. Quizá no resbalaste, dijo la serpiente. Quizás soltaste el lazo a propósito para poder regresar.
I can't say that I blame the mole. I think it may be, I can see why he might want to go home, but it's too sad that they had to laugh at him.
Sí, lástima.
Mole was upset by all the fuss. He ran away and dug a deep tunnel, and he stayed there for a long, long time.
El topo estaba muy enojado y confundido. Estaba corriendo y excavó un túnel muy profundo. Y allí se quedó por mucho tiempo.
To this day, Mole prefers to come out after dark, moving quietly in the moonlight, avoiding the other creatures. And he never, ever listens to a fox.
Hasta la fecha, el topo prefiere no salir antes del anochecer y anda a la luz de la luna sin hacer ruido, evitando a los demás animales. Y jamás presta atención a los zorros.
But what about Fox? Did he make it to the moon? Well, the birds say on a clear night they can see him in the full moon looking down on Earth. Mole says he hasn't seen him. Have you? We're going to look at Anna's book in a minute so we can see up close.
¿Y el zorro llegaría a la luna? Dicen los pájaros que en las noches claras lo pueden ver en la luna llena, mirando hacia la tierra. El topo dice que no lo ha visto. ¿Y tú lo has visto?
Okay, we're going to turn it back to Anna so she could show you the picture of the moon.
So this was that last page of the book, and it was hard to see in the photo, but I'm going to tip the book so you can see it in the different light.
Can you see the fox?
Face in the moon, in that nice silvery ink they use to print these pictures. So there's two eyes and a nose and his ears and his snout. Thank you, Theresa. Gracias, Pablo. That was a real treat. Thank you for that story.
Thank you, it's fun.
So now I want to introduce our activity, and we don't have a long time for it, but I'm going to introduce it, and you might work on it on your own before our next story time, and then you could share it with us. So that was a story from Peru. And when the people who created that story looked up at the moon, they looked at the dark spots and the light spots, and they thought the shape that they saw kind of looked like a fox. So then they wondered, how did that fox get into the moon? And they came up with a story to explain how the fox got to the moon. A lot of people all over the world have told different stories about what they see in the moon and how it got there. I'm going to just introduce a few stories about other pictures that other people have seen in the moon. In China, some people thought that they saw a frog in the moon, and it was actually it was a toad. I called it a frog in this slide, but it's a toad. A toad, and it's a three-legged toad up there in the moon. And there's a story about a woman who drank a magic potion and it turned her into a toad, and she wound up on the moon. In Scandinavia, which is like the northern part of Europe, they see Jack and Jill in the moon. Have any of you heard the Jack and Jill nursery rhyme about walking up the hill to fetch some water? So they imagine that they see Jack and Jill. So I think over on this side, they see Jill, and here's Jack, and he's carrying that pail of water. In Australia, the Aboriginal people of Australia call the moon Bahloo, and Bahloo is this character, and in one of their stories, Bahloo came down and found a canoe with two people in it, and he got into their canoe, but then he fell into the water. The Maori people from New Zealand see a woman in the moon carrying a stick and a gourd. Can you see that? Also notice how this moon looks like kind of upside down from the other moons, and that's because New Zealand is in the southern hemisphere, so they see the moon differently than we do because they're looking at a different angle. Same with this one from Australia, which is not too far from New Zealand if you look on the globe, and they also saw a woman in the moon, and she was making cloth. And then in Mexico, some people in Mexico see a rabbit in the moon. How did that rabbit get there? So there are different pictures that different people have imagined in the moon, and they've told stories about how those people or creatures got up there on the moon. What do you see in the moon? And this is something that we only have a few minutes left, so we probably won't do this together right now, but we do encourage you to look at a picture of the moon and imagine what you see there. You could draw that and tell a story about it. And we'd love it if you'd send it to us. We sent you a link when you registered to a sheet where you can print it out, and there's a picture of a moon, and you can draw it and write your story, or have a grown-up help you write your story. And we'd love it if you would send that to us at storytime@astrosociety.org. If you send us a picture of your moon stories, we can share that next time. Speaking of next time, our next storybook is going to be Ada Twist, Scientist. Now, most of our stories have been about the sky and astronomy. This one's a little different. This one is not about astronomy, but it is about a girl who loves to do science, and astronomy is a kind of science. So we're excited to share the story of Ada Twist, Scientist with you. Next time will be Monday, August 10th, same time, same place. And you can find out more and register at astrosociety.org/storytime. So I'm going to stop the recording, and then we'll stay on a little bit so we can answer questions and share. Thanks everyone for joining us.